Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers is one of the most important albums ever created. Let me explain. Kendrick Lamar is a critically acclaimed artist from Compton, California. Throughout the years, he's released albums such as Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly, and Damn. Each project has its own unique sounds and philosophical narratives. Among many things, Kendrick is a master storyteller. His new album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, contains themes such as self-transformation and spirituality. One main theme is the idea that childhood trauma is connected to addiction. Towards the end of the album, Kendrick talks about his family issues with child sexual abuse and how that connects to his addiction to lust. In this video, we're going to explore the truth of this statement using two different perspectives, spirituality and neurobiology. Kendrick features a spiritual guru in the album named Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle is the author of many books such as The Power of Now and A New Earth. In the album, he says, quote, "If you derive your sense of identity from being a victim, let's say bad things were done to you as a child, you develop a sense of self based on the bad things that happened to you." End quote. Now, we're all familiar with the idea of childhood trauma. This statement feels very true, but is it true? Let's take a look what Eckhart is trying to say here from a different perspective. This is Dr. Gabor Mate. He's a physician and an author who has a special interest in the relationship between childhood trauma and addiction. He is one of the world's most revered experts in the study of addiction. After 20 years of family care and palliative care experience, he worked for over a decade in downtown Vancouver's East Side, treating some of the most severe cases of addiction and mental illness. Let's start with this question. What is an addiction? Addiction is a repeated behavior in which a person feels compelled to persist, regardless of its negative impact on his or her life and the life of others. The hallmarks of addiction are craving, pleasure, relief in the short term, which causes long-term harm, and the inability to give up. Let's take Kendrick's story for an example. He talks about having an addiction to lust, or sleeping with different women. Kendrick repeats this behavior and cannot stop despite negative consequences. This is the definition of addiction. Dr. Mate says, quote, "The question is never why the addiction, but why the pain. The research literature is unequivocal. Most hardcore substance abusers come from abusive homes. The majority of my Skid Row patients suffered severe neglect and maltreatment early in life. Almost all the addicted women inhabiting the downtown East Side were sexually assaulted as children, as were many of the men." End quote. You cannot understand addiction without asking what it relieves the addict from. Addiction is an attempt to escape distress. It soothes or distracts from pain. Dr. Mate says, quote, "Not all addictions are rooted in trauma, but I do believe they can all be traced to painful experience. As we'll see, the effects of early stress or adverse experiences directly shapes both the psychology and the neurobiology of addiction in the brain." End quote. In this video, we will be following along with Dr. Mate's book called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, Close Encounters with Addiction. The neurophysiology of addicts are all the same, whether it's gaming, heroin, or sex. So when Kendrick talks about relating his addiction to other addictions, he's not being poetic, but he's actually being scientifically precise. There are three major networks involved in addiction: the opioid apparatus, the dopamine system, and the self-regulation system. The opioid apparatus. The human body generates its own kind of opiates, called endorphins. Endorphins soothe both emotional and physical pain. They are also called molecules of emotion. Endorphins also allow for emotional bonding between a mother and her child. If you inhibit or destroy the opioid apparatus, the child will not feel emotionally attached to the mother. This would have devastating effects on the child's psychology as he or she grows up. How could one damage the opioid apparatus of a child? Emotional unavailability. Children who do not get sufficient parental attention at a young age are more likely to seek chemical satisfaction from external sources later in life. The dopamine system. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter or chemical messenger in the brain associated with reward or the anticipation of reward. If the opioid system is involved with pleasure, then the dopamine system is involved with the initiation of pursuit of that pleasure. High levels of dopamine are released when we get essential reinforcers like food and sex. High levels are also released when we explore exciting and novel subjects. One example would be skydiving. The self-regulation system. The frontal cortex, specifically the prefrontal cortex, is known as the chief officer of the brain. This is where choices are carefully considered and thought through. The prefrontal cortex also inhibits inappropriate responses and gives an appropriate one instead. A big issue is that addiction disrupts the self-regulation circuits, the exact circuits that the addict needs in order to choose not to be an addict. This creates a vicious cycle. Now, dysfunction in these areas of the brain that I just mentioned is what contributes to addiction. But studies show that these areas are already affected before the person engages in the addiction. So what may cause this? The importance of childhood environment. Quote, brain development in the uterus and during childhood is the single most important biological factor in determining whether or not a person will be predisposed to a substance dependence and to addictive behaviors of any sort, whether drug-related or not. End quote. Good stimulation at a young age is required for the growth of our bodies and minds. For example, let's think of a child that is taken care of in every way: emotional security, food, and shelter. Everything except for one thing. The child is constantly left in the dark. What would be the result? Permanent blindness when the child grows up. Why is this the case? Because the child's eyes are not being stimulated at a crucial age of development. The same applies to the systems that we talked about: the opioid apparatus, the dopamine system, and the self-regulation system. In those cases, the emotional environment is decisive. Quote, infants read, react to, and are developmentally influenced by the psychological states of parents. They are affected by the body language, tension in the arms that hold them, tone of voice, joyful or despondent facial expressions, and yes, the size of pupils. In a very real sense, the parent's brain programs the infants. End quote. Now, what do I think of when I read that? I think of the song Father Times on the album. Kendrick writes about the emotional unavailability of his father and how that affects him to this day. A reasonable assumption would be that the same happened to Kendrick's father. There's this cycle of emotional unavailability that's going through these generations, and it's up to Kendrick to see it and break it. Let me repeat that. The cycle of emotional unavailability will continue unless one generation transforms and changes their psychology and biology.
Let's say another example. The caterpillar says, no, I don't want to become a butterfly. I know who I am, and I'm comfortable with who I am. Why do you want me to become a butterfly? I don't want to fly around in the air. I belong here. And then it munches, this is where I belong. And no matter how much you talk to the caterpillar, you have to wait until finally the caterpillar, when it gets close to the transformation or metamorphosis, then the caterpillar experiences life becoming quite unpleasant. He cannot be a caterpillar anymore, and he can't even crawl anymore, and something is very wrong suddenly. And it's only when life becomes totally unbearable for the caterpillar, then finally he gives in and says, okay, I can't stand this anymore. I'd rather be a butterfly. And so humans are a bit like that. And some are ready, some need more suffering before they are ready. That's the unfortunate truth.
Out of respect to the viewer, I won't give any unsolicited advice for solving your addiction, but I will leave you with this. The brain that's sitting in between your skull right now is capable of tremendous change. There are many examples throughout history of people overcoming almost impossible odds and making huge transformations. What Kendrick is doing on this project is providing a platform for these ideas to be discussed. The first step to solving a problem is recognizing it. People may have considered this to be corny, but who gives a fuck? It may have helped people open up in their own lives. Kendrick is not our savior, but he's certainly a catalyst for self-transformation and truth. I've never listened to an album that fleshes out addiction in this manner. Fuck it up. I've never listened to an album that fleshes out addiction in this manner, which is why Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers may be one of the most important albums of all time. Only time will tell. My heart goes out to anyone going through addiction. I hope that you emerge as the best version of yourself.